How are we doing this morning?
Yeah, okay.
And how's everybody else doing? Well, one thing I wanted to do before I get into the talk is mention something more than what the daily word was about world peace. Now, as we haven't been here since November, because in December we're doing Santa and Mrs. Claus work, and we had a really busy season. And next month I've got something very important that happened that I'm going to talk about on next month's topic about Santa season, called Elf on the Shelf. You may have heard of Elf on the Shelf. But what I want to talk about right now is one of the major requests that I get from children all the time is they just want world peace. Now, the great thing about being in this philosophy is I've got an answer. So what I do with world peace, and I've got the answer for you too, so please listen to this, it's all important, okay? I say, you want world peace? Well, let's get your mom and your dad and your siblings up there. So I get the whole works up there, and I say, so-and-so would like world peace, and I'm going to tell you how we can do that, and how you can support your child on that goal. Anybody interested now? The only way we're ever going to get world peace, the only way isn't what you do out there, it's what you do in here. You cannot expect to demonstrate world peace if you cannot demonstrate peace within inside yourself and take yourself out into the world. Clear? That's how it happens. And I tell that to the parents. I said, this is how you got to do to support your child, and you can work together as a family, and then you can get all the neighbors involved. But it has to happen in here. If you got turmoil in here, you can't have peace out there. It just doesn't work that way, right? Okay, so let's get on to the peace thing, and that's how we get it. Now, grace, the many faces of grace, that's the theme this month. And the affirmation is, grace and gratitude lead me to a deeper awareness of God, which is true. Now, has anybody been confused about the word grace and how it's used? If you start looking at it, there's a lot of different ways that it's used, and that's what I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to finish off with the most important thing. So, how about move with grace? Anybody ever heard that move? And sometimes I don't do that well myself. If someone moves with grace, they move in a smooth, controlled, and attractive way. Moving with grace. Have you ever heard it in that context? Yeah. Behave with grace. They behave in a pleasant and polite and dignified way, even if they're upset or being treated badly. So they behave with grace. That's a challenge for us. And we can all work in all these different phases of grace in our life. Eh? Behave with grace. I don't know whether I'm there yet with that one. I have a little bit of an issue sometimes if I am in a situation where I'm upset or where I'm not being treated fairly. But I'm getting there. I figure that after 43 years, if I got another 10, 20 years, I might be able to make it. Because it's always working on improving and getting better than where you are. And then there's the old famous one. Oh, we're going to give you a grace period. Yeah, watch it, your Visa card. Oh, you get charged and you get 20 days grace before we start. I don't want to say what I'm thinking, but the interest comes. Let's put it that way. Yeah, you get a grace period. And we always say, well, I'll give you a grace period. That means where you get time to relax and think about something. How about gracing an event with your presence? If somebody's important and you have them for an event or in your organization, they graced us with their presence. Of course, you could be facetious about that when somebody's being not nice. You can say, oh, yeah, well, he graced us with his appearance. So, that's a different way to use grace. So when you go into a situation, do you look at it, you're gracing the people with your appearance and feel good about yourself? Or do you think, oh, what are they going to think about me? And we're not talking about being egotistical about the other way. We're talking about going in there with an intention of being of service and being of good value and being pleasant. You know, it's all about intention. Yeah. Your grace and her grace. Well, if you're addressing a duke or a duchess or an archbishop, you maybe say, Your Grace, I have a great favor to ask you. I've been watching a lot of these Viking shows and stuff like that, the old ones lately, and they're always in there, Your Grace, whenever there's somebody in a superior position. It's not used as much these days, but it still is used. I don't know whether I've ever been in a place where I've been able to use that or even thought about using it, but who knows? Oh, here's one we all know. Fall from grace. That's not a good thing. When you fall from grace, that's not a good thing, right? And that's an expression we use if we suddenly stop being successful or being popular. Anybody ever fell from grace and you're not being popular anymore? It always happens in some of my in-depth classes if I do that. I always fall from grace with the students. Because I always tell them at the start of the class, I always say, you know, when we get into really doing the work that you need to do, you're not going to like me. Oh, Reverend Doug, that's not true. You'll like me no matter what. And then partway through the course, they look at me. You're right. Because basically I fall from grace with most of my students. If I don't, I'm really not serving them and doing what they need to have done. That's first bringing to awareness that we deal with it. Many of you here have had worked with me where I've fallen from grace in your eyes on occasion. Yeah. God's green right there. And then, of course, there's grace before a meal. And it's a prayer which you thank God for the food that you've got and ask for the blessing. And grace is the kindness of God. So in Christianity and other religions, grace is the kindness that God shows people because he loves them. And it was only by the grace of God that no one died. Has everybody said that? Only by the grace of God I've never died. Worn out 30 cats I have, but I still am going. Yeah, and the trouble that you get into there is when we start looking at what our concept of God is. Now, generally, in a lot of the standard religions and things like that, God is something separate from the individual. And generally, of course, I don't know where this comes from, but it's always an old man. Anybody ever heard of God as being an old man that's up there pulling strings? Yeah. And you know, that is one of the biggest problems that we've got, is we create that separation when really it's not there. It's only there in our mind. You can't be separate from God because God is all there is. It's everything. It's not an individual, and of course the official term there is not anthropomorphic, which means it's not a man or a woman or a being. It is everything. And so we've got to get into that idea of grace being the kindness of God. Well, we don't have to, but that's where we would move. And then there's the other one. I like this one. There, but for the grace of God, go I. Has anybody ever heard that one? Yeah. And really, when you're looking at somebody and talking to them, and they have some really bad stuff going on, and you can relate to it, you say, there, but for the grace of God, go I. And it's really that, damn, I feel lucky that isn't happening to me. Woo! God, I tell you, that's a little bit rugged, that kind of stuff. Okay, now, I want to get down to really what I really feel is what grace is all about. And in the metaphysical meaning of grace, which is beyond the physical, which we're in, it's goodwill, or it's favor, or disposition to show mercy. It's an aid from God in the process of regeneration. By grace have ye been saved. And so the idea of regeneration and sanctification, the other part of the meaning is an unmerited divine assistance given to humans for their regeneration or sanctification. And that's the official approval of. So we've been given this to help us grow. Regeneration means growth and learning and moving forward. So that's what the grace of God really is all about. And then we got to look at ourselves and go on to it. I guess about the best way which I can explain what that really is, and really how it works, is I'm talking a little bit about my journey myself when I come into this philosophy in the second Sunday of January 1980, a few years ago. And I begin to look at, okay, I got to do some inner work here. And I got to do a program. So, what's the most favorite thing people jump into? If you got drug addiction, alcohol, if you got it all, it's the 12-step programs, And they are really good. And they're good at working with and everything like that. But I had a problem with it. I got into it and I go, I got to step 8 here, and it said, make a list of all persons we have harmed and become willing to make amends to all of them. Now I know a lot of people could sit down and they could get a good list going and stuff like that. And then it says, make number 9. Make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure or harm them or others. I've had it. I got 17 years of, that's when I had trouble. I didn't have much trouble until I was 14, but I had 17 years of really big trouble. All kinds of it. And then, a lot of things were not nice. Okay, and that's the truth. I can't change what I did. None of us can. Anybody, you can't change it, can you? And, you might have done 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 things that you can't change that are bad. I wish I could get it down to 100. It didn't work like that. I started making it, and I started going through it, and I said, I can't do this. Because there are just too many people and situations. Too many. 17 years when you're on walking on the dark side, you can rack up a good score. And that is just the ones I can remember. Has anybody ever been intoxicated and did things that you wish you hadn't? Like the family wedding that I found out 39 years later, they finally talked to me about it. 39 years. Oh my goodness. And I thought it was bad, and I had an idea. It wasn't anywhere near as good as what I thought it was. Way worse. And I go, oh, God. And I know they forgive me, because I got invited to the party. And nobody in my family, even the ones close to me, wouldn't. And we weren't there, and we'll verify this, 20 minutes. We were there, and the topic came up. And that's when I found out what I really did. Anyhow, so the making amends, especially if you're not going to cause harm to anybody or injure others, I did a lot of the things that already caused that, and to go bring it up again, and that would probably not be a good idea. In fact, some of it could be dangerous, if you know what I'm saying. Maybe you don't. That's probably good. So I go, okay, what am I going to do? I can't do this. It's just too long, too much, and how can I ever be complete? So I decided that I would find another way. And that was my intention, and that was my commitment, and I did, because you can't deal with that much. And you can't carry it. And people say, well, don't you feel bad, or don't you feel guilty, or don't you feel terrible about all the things you've done? And I go, no, I don't. Now, I don't. But at first I did. And then I come to realize that Yes, there was 17 years. But it didn't take me 17 years to get straightened out from that. Okay, see, there's 17 years. I don't have to pay 17 years back on the other side of the fence. It's not like that. It wasn't like that. It started happening right away. In fact, the difference in the healing happened the day I decided that what I was doing was working and helping, but there was something missing. And the part that I had missing from my experience of mind control and psychic powers and paranormal stuff I was dabbling in, the thing that was missing was God. I had to come to that point. Kicking, screaming, not me, keep that stuff away from me. But that was the bottom line. That was missing. And so I remember in December of 1979, looking at it, it was pretty bad. I was into a lot of trouble and things weren't going the right way. And I said, God, if there is a way that I can get my life back, I would spend the rest of it in service. Well, and that was my intention. And I put a lot of energy into it because I really was willing to do what I needed to do. And, you know, you gotta watch what you say. Because by your golly, if you make that commitment, you're going to get called on it. And surely I did. And the first thing that happened to me, this is a really neat story, was I had this lucid dream. And in this dream, I was in this center in an old theater. And I was sitting in there looking around and looking at the stage. And then this speaker come out and he started talking. And it had been this place called the Center for Positive Living that this buddy of mine and his wife tried to get me to go to. And, are you kidding? Not that. And I had that dream, and it was so real, I was compelled to go there on the second Sunday of January 1980. And I walked into the old QR Theater in downtown Calgary in the foyer, and I saw the speaker, Dr. Herman Afting, right there. And boy, did things start happening inside when I saw that. Then I went up and I walked into the theater and I'm walking down the stairs and everything was exactly like it was in the dream. And I sat there, and partway through the session I realized I sat in the same seat I was in the dream. Okay? And I knew that this is what I needed to do. So how strong is a person's commitment? The next Sunday, I'm there, and I'm sitting there, and I'm really into it. By the way, I sat in that same chair for 6 months until I moved somewhere else. And I'm there, and then the voice spoke. And it said, Doug, you're going to enjoy being a minister. Oh, I'm a head honcho in an outlaw motorcycle gang, and I've been 10.5 years involved. And I'm going to court in March on a trafficking charge, and I'm looking at 2 to 5 years in prison. I got a raging cocaine addiction, an alcohol problem, all kinds of stuff. And I said, that's what I said. I said, how can that happen? That's the most, don't you think that would be the most ridiculous thing you could ever hear? Yeah, but then the voice said, again, after I did all that, said, Doug, you're going to enjoy being a minister. Well, I made the commitment. I said what I needed to say, and then I said, well, okay, but you got to show me what to do, because I haven't got a clue what to do. Can you imagine that? Okay. Now, if you want to know what grace is, what real grace is, when your intention and your idea is honest and true, and you make the commitment, no matter what the feedback is that comes at, no matter how ridiculous it might seem at the time, you must say yes to it. And I said yes to it. And it was that was 1980, and in 1988, I had finished my ministerial course and graduated and left St. for the first time and went to Red Deer and started a center up there. Now, who would have ever thought that I would do that simply by making a simple statement? Who would have thought that I could do that based on my background, which was rather tacky, to say the least? Who would have ever thought that? How much time would I have to pay to be able to do something like that? Well, if your intention's clear, you turn to the light, then it doesn't matter what's preceded it. It doesn't matter how bad you were. It doesn't matter how terrible you were. If you make that commitment, you declare that intention, and then you have to be willing to step up to the plate. I remember when I went through my burnout. A magazine come in from the wrong address in my mailbox. And I'm looking through it. It was from Outward Bound. Anybody ever heard Outward Bound? They got all these big programs. And I'm looking through that, and then there was this one I went through, and zzz, what the hell was that? Goes on and come back again and goes zzz. And I looked at the program. It was a 3-week light mountaineering course. I thought people that did that and paid to do it were nuts. I would never do nothing like that. I said, I'm not doing that. Go through it again, and it goes, go put it on the wall. Here we go. I gotta tell you, you want to talk about resistance? You want to talk about not wanting to? But when I made the commitment and made the intention, I had to say yes. That became the second most profound experience of my life, and still ranks up there as the second most profound experience I've ever had. Who would have known? That's why when you really get clear on what your intention is, and you're willing to turn it over to the Spirit within you, and then to do what it tells you, that's the key. That's what grace is all about, because it doesn't matter what's gone before. This is a new beginning. Who'd ever thought that when I was out there on the streets, cranking it up with the gang stuff and all of that, that I'd be a reputable minister, college prof, and a professional Santa, and a mountain man tour guide? Who'd ever thought that? Not me! In fact, if you'd have told me all that was going to happen to me, I'd have had some different kind of words for you. Okay? So you can't say, I don't know what I want to do. Hell, I never known what I wanted to do. I just known that I wanted to change and be better, and guess what was given to me? And one of the greatest gifts as I went along with the gems is being a professional Santa. I gotta tell you, it is just so neat after 9 years. So remember, folks, it don't matter what's happened. You don't have to pay for it. You already have. In fact, probably most of you have had it happen a long time ago, and you're still paying for it. And it's time to say, I don't need to pay for that anymore. I'm free. And turn to the Spirit and declare what your intention is and what you're willing to do. Then be prepared to do it, by the way, folks, because it'll never turn out the way you think it's going to. I've never been right on trying to figure that out. But it's always turned out better. All kinds of experience. So I know for you, as I know for myself, that the grace of God is there, ready to be activated, but it has to be activated by me, in me, through me. That's the only way. And then I have to be willing to take that and apply it out here. And that's the way it works. So I'm going to ask you to join with me in a closing meditation right now. So I'm going to ask you to go within, and we're going to get started here. the face of God. I hold you in my arms. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. Face of God, I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. And join me on a little journey. The journey is to a mirror in your home. Maybe the bathroom, bedroom, but it's a mirror. And you're standing in the mirror looking at yourself. Yes, you've made mistakes. You've made errors. You've done things that weren't in your best interest. We've all made mistakes. Everyone has made mistakes. The past is the past. It's done. It no longer serves us. Be here in the present moment. Set your intention of what it is that you want. And go within. And with passion, declare to Spirit what your intention is, and that you're open and receptive to receiving the guidance that is needed to move forward on this journey called life. And to know that there is no objection, no restriction, and no limitation. There is only the new beginning. So let's just take that beautiful vision we see in the mirror in silence, and make that declaration of intention to yourself and feel it. And so now we have received the grace of God. It has now been delivered unto us, and it is now activated in our life. And there's a willingness within each and every one of us to follow through with this intention, and to follow through what is given to us along the way to help fulfill this intention. And know that there are no restrictions or limitations from the past, because we've transferred into the grace of God. And that is forever giving of itself of the opportunity of working in the light. So we give thanks for this, and we know this as so. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part The you is what you see in the mirror. It's the reflection of self. So take the words that we sang there, embody them, and know them to be the truth about you. And we give thanks, and we know it is so. And so it is.
So it is.